You know, every single product you own, your phone, your coffee mug, your chair, it has a secret history. A story of how it was made that, until now, has basically just vanished. We're about to look at a new kind of time machine, one that's designed to save that story, to bring back the ghosts of forgotten ideas and finally show us the secret journey of design.
In this quote, this really hits the nail on the head. It gets right to the heart of this huge problem that creative people deal with all the time. We get to see the polished, final product, right? But what about that roller coaster journey to get there? All the twists and turns, the ups and downs, poof, it's just gone. All right, so first up, let's really dig into this lost story. I mean, what are we actually losing when this stuff disappears? And why has it been so darn hard to save it until now? This image here really shows you what creativity actually looks like. It's not this nice, clean, straight line from A to B. Oh no. It's more like this chaotic funnel. Designers are throwing tons of ideas in, exploring all these dead ends and different paths. But what do we see? We only ever see the one tiny little thing that manages to squeeze out the other side, the final product.
Okay, so why does any of this matter? Well, it turns out we lose a ton of important stuff. First, you lose the why. The reason a design is the way it is often has more to do with the ideas that got thrown out. Second, you lose a peek into the brain of an expert, right? How they think, how they solve problems. And maybe the biggest loss of all, you lose the best teaching tool you could ever ask for, a perfect replay of a master at work. And when you lose all that, you're slowing down innovation, you're making it harder for people to learn, and you're missing out on better designs.
So, to crack this case of the disappearing process, researchers had to play detective. They started by looking at the evidence, and that meant decoding what designers are actually doing, starting with the tools they use every single day.
And right here, this table just lays it all out perfectly. This is the fundamental problem. You've got tools like Photoshop, which are all about layers, right? They're built to make one perfect, polished image. But a designer's brain? It doesn't work in layers, it works in versions. It's constantly exploring this branching tree of different possibilities. And because the tools don't match the thinking, designers are stuck with this awful, clunky workaround of saving final v2, final v3 final. You know the drill. Researchers have a fancy name for it, cognitive logistical friction. But really, it just means it's a huge pain that completely kills your creative flow.
So it turns out the answer isn't about better file management or saving bigger images. To really get this right, you have to go way, way deeper. You have to zoom in, past the file, past the image, all the way down to the atomic unit of a sketch, a single stroke.
Yeah, because a sketch, it's not just a static picture. Think of it more like a performance or a piece of writing. It's made up of a whole sequence of individual strokes, and every single one has its own purpose, its own job to do. It's like they have their own intent. And when you put them all together, they form a kind of language, a grammar. And if it's a language, well, maybe a machine can learn to read it.
And that's exactly what researchers did. They basically figured out the alphabet of this language. Turns out there are 6 main types of strokes. You've got your constraining strokes for setting up the boundaries, then defining strokes when you're searching for the right shape, detailing strokes for locking in those final edges. And then, of course, you've got shading, shadow, and even little notes or annotations. Each one is like a little breadcrumb, a signal that tells you what the designer was thinking in that exact moment.
So once they understood the problem with the tools and they cracked the code of the strokes, well, that's when they could build something really incredible, a genuine time machine for the design process.
And here is the big aha moment. This is the key insight. You've got how designers think. They explore a bunch of different ideas sideways, that's called lateral transformation, and then they dive deep to refine one of them, that's vertical transformation. And it turns out that process is almost a perfect mirror of how software developers manage code with version control systems, like Git.
So what did they do? They built a system called sGit, short for sGit, and it's brilliant. It basically translates all that geeky software stuff into actions that make sense for a designer. So a commit, that's just saving a snapshot of your sketch. And get this, you can even add a quick voice note to explain what you were thinking. A branch, that's just you saying, hey, I'm going to try a totally different idea over here for a bit without messing up your main one. It finally makes version control feel totally natural for a creative visual person.
But wait, how does it actually read the sketch? Okay, this is where it gets really cool, kind of like magic. When a designer is drawing, the system isn't just capturing the pixels on the screen. No, it's capturing the physics of how it was drawn, the speed, the pressure, the acceleration of every single movement. It's like it's reading the designer's digital body language. And then an AI model analyzes all that data to figure out the intent behind every single stroke, and it does it instantly.
So, the big question is, did it actually work? Well, they put it to the test. They had real designers use it, drawing all sorts of new strokes the system had never ever seen before. And the accuracy of the AI model? 100%. Perfect accuracy. It didn't just guess, it understood the grammar of the designer's hand.
Okay, so the tech is proven. It's 100% accurate. But now it's time for the main event, the ultimate test. They set up a head-to-head showdown to see if this thing could really, truly change how designers actually work.
And they didn't give them an easy task. They gave 2 expert designers this wild, super abstract challenge. Okay, they said, design a bicycle, but it has to be inspired by the intersection of Indian dance and brutalist architecture. I mean, what? It's a crazy brief. One designer got the normal tools, the other got the new AI system. And the results? Honestly, they were just staggering. The designer who was using the new system, they explored 160% more unique concepts. Just stop and think about that. The tool didn't just record their creativity, it actually unlocked more of it by making it completely painless to try out new ideas.
And then there's this number, which is just wow. The system captured 800% more commits. That means 800% more of those little in-between steps were saved. All those little sketches and ideas that are usually just lost forever, they were all captured, creating this perfect, super detailed history of that roller coaster journey we talked about at the beginning.
But for my money, this right here is the most incredible result of all. They took the summary that the AI generated and gave it to a total novice. And using this really clever new way to measure how well ideas are transferred, they found that the novice could understand and recreate the expert's design with, get this, 97% fidelity. 97%. That's up from just 73% with the old method. It means the expert's knowledge, their actual thinking, was transferred almost perfectly. That's a game changer. So what's the big takeaway here? This system takes that fleeting, momentary act of sketching, something that just disappears into thin air, and turns it into a solid, concrete asset. It makes creativity something you can trace, something you can analyze, and, this is the most important part, something you can actually transfer to someone else. And all of this leaves us with this huge, fascinating question. Okay, so we've built a time machine for design. What's next? I mean, what about architecture, or composing music, or even the process of scientific discovery? What other brilliant, chaotic, creative journeys can we finally save from being lost to time?